Welcome back to the iCoach podcast. I'm joined tonight with my guest, Jason Haddock. He's the assistant head football coach, defensive coordinator, head boys track coach, amongst many other titles at Fort Bend Clements High School. Welcome, Coach.
Coach, thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. I know we've gotten to get to know each other. We're in this mythical group text of recruiting coordinators. But as we've gotten to know each other, I've learned a lot about you, Coach. Can you just kind of share with our audience what got you into coaching and what got you all the way to Fort Bend Clements?
Sure. I first, when I was in college, I played ball at Baylor University and was very fortunate to do that. And as my time there was wrapping up, my direction in life was active duty Air Force. It's what I grew up with as an Air Force brat. I'm third generation military. And that's what I wanted to do. And when my time in the military full-time was up, I kind of went, man, what do I want to do in life? And my mom said, well, I've always seen you coaching otherwise. And I played around in the accounting world just a little bit and kind of went, coaching is where I really need to go, I think. So I was fortunate to get on with Live Oak Classical in Waco, Texas, to help them start their program. And I spent 3 years as their defensive coordinator. And as the turn of the economy took away my accounting job, it opened up an opportunity for me to get into public education and full-time coaching. And I was fortunate to get on very quickly with Hillsborough High School, got on there, spent a year there, and then a year at Waco High School. I was fortunate to be able to leave Waco and come down to the Houston area. My wife's from this area. And I spent 2 years as the defensive coordinator at Booker T. Washington down at Houston ISD. After leaving Booker T, I came to Fort Bend, Thurgood Marshall, and spent 4 years as the co-special teams coordinator at Thurgood Marshall, and learned a ton of football while I was there and a ton of how to do things, and had such a great time there at Thurgood Marshall. And then 2 years ago, I got a call from the head coach at Clements, who was an old college teammate of mine, and asked me to come over and be his defensive coordinator and help make some climate changes in the program and do some good things over there. So I was able to move from Marshall over to Clements at that point.
Fantastic. That's quite a journey. Tell me, what was one of the things that made you decide that maybe the business world and accounting wasn't for you and it was coaching, that was it?
I had great role models as coaches when I was a player. And coaches that were very close to me, one of whom was best man in my wedding, Donnie Funderburg, who's coaching at Breckenridge right now. And he's a guy that I can still call. And at 41 years old, I still call him coach 90% of the time, because that's just how I knew the man. I had a couple of great college coaches that really reached me that I still keep in touch with. And that kind of was what got the fire started to be lit. But working in the accounting world, I'd go to work and I'd come home and it was a paycheck. There was not a lot of joy sitting in the cubicle, looking at other people's money and trying to make the numbers line up. And there didn't seem to be any reaching other people when I was in that job, and pull me out of that and put me in coaching. And now I've got direct impact on young men and women's lives every day. It's just so much more rewarding than sitting in the cubicle farm being a number at an accounting firm.
Absolutely, Coach. And I know we talk about all the different jobs you do within education. The assistant head football coach, defensive coordinator. We didn't mention recruiting coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
In the climate of where we're at now, how have you been able to get your kids exposed to colleges and get them some notoriety for what they do?
Sure. That's with COVID and quarantine and having to kind of lock down and not being able to outreach directly with those college coaches face to face. First and foremost, I've been really lucky to be in the recruiting coordinator group with you guys, with you and some other great coaches, where we can play off of each other and give each other ideas. And, hey, I need a contact at this school. Do you have it? And be able to share that information. I think one of the big differences is being able to do visually appealing things for our kids, things in Photoshop and Canva that make our kids stand out, make our program stand out, that are just eye-catching enough for somebody to want to take that second look that first glance, they may not see something, but that second glance, if I can get them to look twice, then I can get them to really take a look at a kid and maybe get a chance to speak to them and say, hey, look, I've got this young man, got this young man, it's a great kid, and here's why I think you fit great in your program, and really try and get my kids sold that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know it's been a challenge. The dead period is finally lifting, so some things should be opening up soon. And I know just staying diligent is a hard thing for us to do, but we're sticking with it. It's working.
Absolutely.
Sure. In addition to all of these other titles we mentioned, some of our listeners may not realize this, and I didn't realize this till we really got into the conversation, but you're also active military. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. After leaving active duty, I kind of missed it. Like I said, I grew up with my dad in the uniform. He was full-time 20 years. His two brothers were career. My mom's dad and her brother were both career. So it's just what I knew growing up, moving around every 3 to 4 years and not knowing a stranger. You just learn to adapt in everybody's family. And when I came out of that off active duty, I kind of went, man, I don't know what I'm going to do now, because this is what I thought my life was going. I had a chance to go back into the Guard here in Texas. And it's kind of cool because I'm able to serve with some friends that I spent time with in ROTC and on active duty. Now we're together in the Guard, and so I do 1 weekend a month, and then a small deployment in the late spring, early summer. And we've done deployments. Our most recent deployments were here during COVID, and distributing food and water to people that need it, and helping with vaccine distribution areas and things like that. There was a tornado on the northeast side of Houston up in Alaska last year, and we were able to go out and give some reprieve to the citizens there that needed food and water, things like that. So anytime we have natural disasters, we're on call, and we get that go call, and it's okay. Let's start rolling.
Absolutely. And that speaks directly to the man that I know, to the Jason that I know, is a guy that gives back and a guy that is always looking to help others. So this, I guess it brings me to another thing. When you're always giving, how important is it to have family and a good wife that looks after everything while you're spending that time away?
Man, it's of the utmost importance. And this is something that I know we see in the coaching world, and you see a lot in the military world too. And there are so many similarities between the military and coaching that it's really surprising. But in both cases, you're in a job that's somewhat transient, and if you want to move up in your job there, you have to be willing to move, and well, every couple of years, Uncle Sam tells you you're going to move anyways in the military. So if you don't have a spouse that understands that your work is going to run late sometimes, and you may say you're going to be home at 6:30 and it may be 7 o'clock when you're walking in the door, or later, kind of thing, that understands when you get the call it's time to go. If you don't have that support system, you can't do the things that you do. Throw kids in on top of that. I'm a proud girl dad. I've got a 2-year-old and an almost 4-year-old, and when I walk in the door and they scream "Daddy," that's it. I'm done. And I absolutely love that. I miss my girls when I go to do stuff, but I know that I'm going to do to help other people, or to spend time with kids at school that may need that time, more than I know my girls do, if that makes sense. So having that supportive family, and that's everything. That means the world, and I love when my wife and the girls can come watch me coach, and watch my team, and watch the product that I put out. And I was very fortunate growing up. Mom and dad came to as much as they could, and that was usually mostly everything. And here again in my 40s, when mom and dad can come to a game and watch the product that I put out, they're excited to come cheer for kids. They have no idea who these kids are, but they know those are our kids, and those are my kids, and those are kids that I've poured into. So, they get to cheer those kids on. It makes me feel good. Them still coming to games when they get a chance, and to come watch and cheer us on, and to get to make them proud that way. Just having that family support generational support, and then my nuclear family, my wife and my girls, having that support, man, if I didn't have that, you couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess that leads me to the next question. I know you mentioned the best man at your wedding was one coach that had a huge impact on your life.
Mhm.
And we all know that building relationships is everything in this business. Tell me a little bit about how you go about making these authentic relationships with your players, and how you are the coach that you needed when you were younger.
Sure. I guess the kids that I'm the closest with are the kids that I spend the most time with, and those are my linebackers. And really, it's not just get out there and yell and scream and spit and to get them to do. You really have to take the teaching from the classroom to the field. As coaches, we are teachers, not just because we do it in the building, but we're teachers on the field too. So I have to bring that dynamic as part of it. But it's just spending time with them. It's being around them. It's doing things like putting my arm around a kid and telling them, "Hey, I love you, man." All right, and helping them understand. And a lot of adults have a problem with this too. Helping them as a young man understand, when we're on the field, it's business. When we step across that track, it's not. Now then it's just you and me. And I've run the gamut of players in my career, from kids that have no problems at home, that have mom and dad at home and life is great, to kids that have no male role model in their life, that something you've done, something you've said makes them latch on to you. I've got a young man right now that dad is not in the picture at all, and he's not even in my position. He's on the offensive side of the ball, so he's over on the dark side. But he somehow, I said something, he latched on to me, and this is a young man that he and I get together once a week. I don't miss, because I can't miss and let him down. We get together once a week, and we're going through Tony Dungy's Bible study right now, and that's getting together once a week for lunch. And there may be weeks where we just close the book and I say, "Okay, let's just talk. Talk to me about what's going on in your life." And I think that genuine relationship, creating that relationship, is just kind of like you and I are doing right now, just talking, and having the opportunity to talk, just, with those kids, especially, it's just listening, let them talk about what they want to talk about. And sometimes they need a little prompt, get them started, but just let them go, and they will talk, and they will tell you things, and there are some things where I'm going, do I need earmuffs before you speak this? But it's just showing them that you genuinely listen, that you genuinely care, not your phone sitting on the table when you're checking it every 2 seconds. My phone's in my pocket, it's put away, you're the focus of my attention right now. And then, like I said, being able to put my arm around a kid and show a young man that it's okay for one man to put his arm around the other man and say, "I love you, brother, and I appreciate you and the hard work that you do." That just opens eyes for them, and I saw a lot of that, growing up. Didn't have the bad life, very fortunate. But I saw friends of mine that had tough lives growing up, where Coach Funderburg again would give them rides, and we're coaches, we all give kids rides, I get it, but take them to eat, buy them that pair of cleats that we knew they needed, but they didn't have the money for, and how he treated them truly as his children, and that to me could not have been a better example of how to be a coach for kids. Just couldn't have been. So to be able to see that example, and then to try and give back like that and do the same thing, that creates those relationships just by I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to let you talk, but I'm going to make you my focus and pay attention to you and show you that you're important.
That's Coach. That's everything. Man, it made me flash back as you were talking, because I was on both sides of that. I was, as a young child, I didn't have a father at home, and I had coaches that filled that gap. And then I had the greatest stepfather in the world when I was 19. When I was in college, my mom remarried, and I actually got that relationship. So I saw both sides. But as a coach, I know this, and I think you feel the same way, that if you've ever coached a kid, they're always your kid. They
Yes.
always will be. Just like
Yes.
your Coach Funderburg's kid.
Yeah.
You still call him Coach now.
Absolutely. And like I said, I can pick up the phone and call him right now and hey, let's talk. And after my kids did well at the area track meet, that was the first thing I wanted to do, is call him and tell him about how my kids did.
Hmm.
And then, the next day I get a text message from one of my old linebackers, and he's trying to break into the music industry right now. And he's like, Coach, I got a new track that I'm going to drop. I want you to hear it first, tell me what you think.
Yes.
And I'm like, why is this other grown man care what I think, about because we built that relationship and I got to know him and I care about him and he cares about me. And, it's just, it blows your mind sometimes,
Hmm.
that you can have any kind of impact like that on people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it, extends way past X's and O's. It extends way past wins and losses. It's about those lifelong relationships. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what coaching is. A coach told me, I think it was my first year coaching. He said, if you coach a kid and when they come back to visit their old coaches, they don't stop by to say hello to you, that's how you know you're doing this job wrong.
Sure.
But if you're the guy that they run into and say, Coach, I can't wait to tell you about this class I just finished taking, or I'm about to have a family, or yeah, or this new job I just got, then that's when you know you're doing it right. And
Mm-hmm.
so, Coach, I mean, it's as we get this organic conversation going, one thing I do see is that a lot of us guys in this coaching fraternity, we all have that same heart. That's what we're looking for.
Sure. And it's if I make it to 90 like my granddad, I'm going to be lucky. After he got out of active duty, he went into education and he taught and he coached and then he officiated and then he ran the clock because that's all he could do. And
Mm-hmm.
my granddad's 90 years old and in his 80s going to the store, he'll run across kids because he's in the same town, and oh, hey, Coach B, how are you doing? This is my son or this is my grandson. And he's like, Jason, I don't remember who some of these kids are. I was 40, 50 years ago. But they still remember me and they still want to introduce me and I'm like, well, you had an impact on that child at some point in their life. And Poppy, they remember you, so we see coaches who don't react like that. And we see coaches who don't coach like that not make it very long in this job, because Lord knows we're not here for the money, and we see coaches that just, that's the last guy in the office and the first guy to bounce at the end of the day. And they don't spend any extra time with the kids and they just don't last.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, this is the last question I have for you.
Sure.
And it might be a difficult one. I want you to put some thought into it. But if you could sum up your coaching philosophy in one sentence, what would that sentence be?
Man, that's a toughie because there's a lot that goes into that,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
um I I think if I could sum it up into one sentence, I would say just love your kids. If you love your kids, they will run through a brick wall for you. They'll say yes, sir, and no, sir, and they will do anything you ask them to do. And we've all had that kid where the parent comes in and the parent says, can you help me out? Because they'll listen to you. They won't listen to me. Well, I'm not saying that they don't love on their kid because they're their parent, maybe they just love on their kid differently than I do. And but man, you love on a kid and show them genuine love and the stuff that comes with that, caring about somebody, respect for somebody, expectation of respect back. So teaching those young children, those young adults, they are, how to respect, and just that genuineness that comes with love. Man, they do anything for you. And so I'd if I got to sum it down to one sentence, I'll say love your kids.
Nothing else needs to be said after that. That's where it begins.
Yeah.
Coach Haddock, this has been a fantastic episode of the iCoach podcast. Thank you again for joining me. And if I have anybody who'd like to follow you, where could they reach you at, Coach?
I am on Twitter. It's at Coach J Haddock on Twitter. and I've also run the Clements track Twitter, and so you can catch us on there, highlighting our kids, showcasing what they can do, and then the same thing on my personal Twitter. How much can we show out on the kids, or try and share out some football knowledge and things like that.
Fantastic. Coach Haddock, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.